couple of weeks ago. But just that one. So good
How's
to see you
everyone doing
guys.
today?
All good. How about you, Manu?
Well, doing well. Busy day as usual.
Yeah, pretty busy over here as well. Okay, we should be live on YouTube. Yeah, we are.
Awesome. I'm gonna bring in the chat as well.
Sure. So, guys, again, welcome. It's good to see you. In case we haven't met before, this is Juan. I'm with Manuel over here. We are both instructors at GuitarZoom Academy, and we are just very happy to be over here today. Today's topic is overcoming like general guitar frustrations, especially information overload. I think that's a very common issue that you get when studying guitar and basically anything. It's easy to get overloaded with a lot of information and not knowing how to handle that. So we're gonna talk about that from our experience, a couple of tips. We are always welcome for you to guys please ask questions, make comments, so leave them in the chat or open your mic if you're on Zoom. We're also just gonna leave a couple of links on the chat, both over here on Zoom and on YouTube, for you guys to invite you to join our academy. That's Guitar Zoom Academy. We do this kind of stuff every day over there. We do live classes, personalized assessments on your goals. We understand that it's easy to either not know what to practice or have too much information and not knowing what to do with that. So we also try to chunk down and prioritize your goals in a very personalized manner. So if that's something that you're into, please consider joining. There are the links on the chat. With that in mind, let's get started. So I have a couple of ideas, but first, Manuel, maybe do you have like a starting comment in mind?
Well, we actually have a specific class for this in the academy. It's called structure and accountability. So this is a big enough problem that we actually every Monday we talk about structure and organization. And information overload is something that comes up like every now and then, very often.
Yeah, and we call it that way because that's basically the issue that most people have when they get to our academy, and it's not having either structure or not having discipline. So that's why we keep you guys accountable over here. We understand that that's pretty key to making progress and making progress fast. So yeah, we have that class over here, and it's basically focused on how to practice. We like to just do a very structured and specific practice routine for you guys. Again, that's a little bit more personalized, but yeah, we go very deep into you need to do this, practice this in order to get to that goal. So yeah, we understand the importance of that. With that in mind, let's get started. So I feel it's easy. One of the very common issues that I've seen people get over here with is that they have like too many ideas of a lot of concepts, but not too much knowledge, like not a deeper understanding of those kind of things. For example, people know or have heard about modes, about scales, about chords with sevenths and extensions and a lot of concepts on theory mainly. I've seen that, or maybe you have heard of the caged system and you know these ideas, you have heard the terms, you know more or less what they refer to, but at the end of the day, people don't usually know how to apply them or don't really have an understanding of either what they are or how to make them relevant on their playing. So I would start out maybe doing an invitation for each one of you guys to see, like, to maybe see yourself in the mirror and try to be honest on where's your level at. Like, what's the stuff you actually have a deeper understanding of, and what's the stuff you really don't have an idea of what it means. I also, at least in my process, I try to be very honest on what's actually relevant for me right now because I can be studying some very complex and funny scales, but am I really gonna use that on a specific repertoire? Or do I want to make the space to use that if I really like that concept? For instance, one scale for me that I really like and have tried to study a couple of times is called the whole tone scale. And I have practiced it a couple of times. It's a very interesting scale, but at the end of the day, it has not stuck to me that much because I don't really use it all of the time. I maybe used it to play one song some time ago, but I used it for that kind of solo on that song and then forget about it. So I think it's very important to try to be honest on what's actually relevant for my process right now. With that in mind, I also want to say try to first define some goals like based on your interest. It doesn't have to be something very very specific and very like dialed down, but just try to be honest on where are you trying to get to and what's the stuff do you like. So for instance, if you feel like you just want to play songs.
Tell Juan his volume's way too low.
Okay, I'll turn it up, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, should be better. um Yep. With I was just saying, let's try to establish goals. So, for instance, if you're trying to learn songs and you're just trying to play the repertoire maybe a good idea would be to focus on chords and strumming. So maybe modes are not gonna be the most important concept for you at that stage. So I would just say try to establish short and medium term goals that are very realistic. So if I want to play some songs, let's focus on choosing maybe one or two for this week, depending on the amount of time you put into practice. And what's not directly related to that, maybe leave it aside for a while. So maybe if your focus is to play, I don't know, Wonderwall by Oasis and another song, focus on playing the chords, on playing the strumming, and maybe your focus won't be to try to solo and to try to understand the cage system or the 12-bar blues. Like, try to just keep your practice focused on those specific goals. And also, I feel it's important to, or at least it helps, to have deadlines. So maybe try to have X part of this song for the end of the week. Or maybe let's aim to play this whole song for this next 4 weeks. Like, try to make your goals time bound, and that will make it very very easy to follow through and to just stay focused on being able to achieve that goal and not get distracted with any other concepts. That's like my initial ideas for this. Manu, do you have maybe something to add there?
Well, a big part of the problem arises from lack of direction. That's the number one problem, and that's the culprit of you noodling nonstop on random or like jumping around on random topics, right? You sit down to practice, and it usually looks like, oh, you play like 3 or 4 riffs from different songs that are completely disconnected from each other, or you are trying to learn 10 skills at once, just like Juan said, like not really relevant stuff from your music genre. And this happens like this is like a very common rabbit hole for people that want to get into theory and say, oh yeah, let's learn some theory, and they try to learn all the theory at once. It's like they get into chords, they get into scales, they get into harmony, they get into songwriting, they get into this and that, and they end up with a bunch of nothing, because honestly the brain cannot retain that information. It requires some work over time and some structure to do that. I think well, I have a number of comments I have about this. You need to find like a real world example of anything that you're trying to learn. Like if and once you do that, just try to stick around with it for a while. And a good time frame for that, or at least a good starting point, is 1 week. Right? If you're gonna work on, I don't know, the Dorian mode for a week, like to name a topic, could be anything. But let's talk about the Dorian mode. Yeah, sure. You work on the Dorian mode for a week. You don't have to work on that for 2, 3, 4 weeks. Like at the end of the week, you're gonna assess your progress and say, okay, how much progress did I done? Is this enough? Should I jump into another topic? Is this relevant? Am I playing? And of course, find examples of the Dorian mode or whatever thing that you're trying to learn in a real world song, or any example from a guitar player. Otherwise, you're working with ideas in a vacuum. So those are the things that I have in my head when, or at least when thinking about common noodling problems from guitar players. Like, and get off YouTube as much as you can. Try not to stay in the YouTube homepage for too long, because you end up like on that clicking rabbit hole. It happens to me. It happens to the best of us. But you don't want it to happen like every single day. It's all good with the guitar channels online, but they are kind of like a big time waster sometimes.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a couple of very key parts. One of them is disconnection, right? Just trying to accumulate knowledge, but not really interiorizing it. That's gonna be a key part. And that's related to what you just said on the rabbit hole of clicking on a bunch of information and trying to just understand and know and hear and read about all of this, but not really spending the time into actually making that relevant on a real world context. I feel that's what makes the whole difference. So I think it's very important to spend actually more time just practicing and interiorizing a specific concept. And again, just dial down to maybe just one concept. So it can be the Dorian mode for the whole week, but really spend your time mostly practicing the Dorian mode on the fretboard and using it for improvising or for playing chords instead of reading a lot about it. Like that reading part is maybe just the starting point for understanding what it's made out of or just understanding the concept in general, but do spend most of your time just with your guitar exploring that concept. One that comes to my mind is, for example, the caged system. People have heard of it, but that's about it. Like they don't usually know how to use it, don't know why it exists or what's the relevance of that. So here's an idea. Maybe if you want to study the caged system, and it is pick a chord progression. For this, I always like to use the 12-bar blues because I feel it's a very interesting progression. I'll write all of this in a second here on the whiteboard. Also, you can hear that pretty well, right? Great. So let's say that just overly simplifying it, the 12-bar blues is a progression that has 12 bars, and once it ends, it starts over again. So it's made up of basically just 3 chords. In this example, I'm gonna be on the key of A major, so that's gonna be A, then D major, then E major, and back to A. So I'm gonna write again the order of this in a whiteboard in a moment, but my invitation is first understand what's the caged system. Again, overly simplifying it, it's basically a system that allows you to move shapes on the fretboard. So for instance, this shape that I was using right here is called E shape because you can use this coming from an E major chord. This is like a bar chord, so you can move this shape around the fretboard. And another shape that's very common is the A shape, which looks like this. So this is a shape that we can also use to move around. So I would invite you guys to take a look at the chords that make up this progression using these shapes. For instance, what happens if I only use E shape? Here's my A, here's my D, here's my E, and back to my A. That's only using E shapes from the caged. Or if I only use A shapes, here's A, here's D, here's E, and here's A again. So look, with this very simple concept, using the same progression on different parts of the fretboard, right? And I can use this to move around. So that's like just an example using a couple of chords from the 12-bar blues, but that can be applied to any chord progression. So if you're working on a specific song that you think has a very simple progression that you can easily understand and you already have played it a couple of times, maybe you can use the caged system to move this around. Now, let me just share my screen so we can do this deeper example. So basically how a 12-bar blues looks on the key of A major is like this. We're gonna have 4 measures of the chord of A major. If anyone's not familiar, these percentage symbols I'm writing over here mean that the previous chord is being repeated. And these vertical lines just mean the start and the end of a measure or a bar. So this basically means that we play 4 bars or 4 measures of A major, then 2 of them of D major, then 2 of them of A major, then we do this is E to D to A to E. So using these shapes that we used on the caged, that's gonna be, for instance, only E shapes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3. Now D, A, E, D, A, and E. So that was a 12-bar blues using only E shapes, finding the roots on the low E string. Now let's do the same exercise but only using A shapes. So here's my A, here's my D, and here's my E. So this is how it sounds. Now D, A, E, D, A, E, and back to A. So, as you could see, we chunked down a concept, which in this case was the 12-bar blues. We didn't try to understand the whole concept right away. The cage system has 5 different voicings. For now, we just used 2 of them. And that was a very interesting exercise in finding a lot of different chords on the fretboard. And we just used the framework of the 12-bar blues to make it relevant right away and musical as well. And that's something that we can use in a wide variety of contexts. We can, once we understand that, we can maybe transpose that to different keys on the fretboard, and that's gonna be a whole new world. Or we also can play around with different tempos, playing this over backing tracks or also on our own. So yeah, that was just to say an example of how to apply a concept that you're practicing and try to make it relevant. If it's maybe the case system, you can take a look at a progression and try to find different voicings of this progression throughout the fretboard. That's just an example. Maybe do you have any other ideas, Manu?
I'm just gonna make a comment that this could be, or like, if this very moment for some players could be information overload. If at any point once the explanation went over your head, and not just about this explanation or anything that you watch online or any course or video that you ever watch, if at any point you do not understand any of these concepts, then you need to take a step back and see what that means, what that's all about, because otherwise you're going to work with a concept that's more advanced than what you're actually able to do right now. So Juan just used concepts like voicing and stuff that's more advanced compared to, or maybe some people don't even know what a bar is if they don't know theory. They just play by ear. They don't know what a bar is, or like a 12-bar blues is. So if you're listening to an explanation and some of the concepts are going over your head, that's a good sign that you need to step back and at least be careful of what you're listening on, or like take it bit by bit. That's at least one of the trademark problems of information overload, right?
Definitely, yeah. This explanation itself can be an example of that as well. So yeah, I find it useful always to try to break down everything until the very smallest bit of information that you can actually understand and also define. I think that's key in order to study and understand anything. I always try to, if I have a word in front of me or a concept, I try to define it. Just being able to put that idea into words is a very good way of knowing that you understand that concept. So as you said, what's a bar or a measure? If you don't know that, maybe look that up. This kind of words are pretty easy to maybe look up online, you know, like if you don't know what a musical measure is, you can just ask Google, or surely there will be a million YouTube videos understanding that. I'm not saying check all of them, but maybe just take a look at one or two so you start to understand or get a grasp of that specific concept. And that applies for any idea that you might not understand. So if you don't know what the cage system is, maybe look for something online. Again, just one or two sources, not too much, just to get an idea. Or if you don't know what the 12-bar blues is, or what's a chord progression, or even what's a chord. Like, I feel it's important to be able to break down these ideas to the smaller part and really take your time into just breaking it down until you really have an understanding and there are no gaps in that kind of staircase, because this kind of processes are like build-ups of information, and if you have a gap on one of the steps of the ladder, you'll encounter everything down the line a little bit weaker. So you'll need to come back to fix that little gap you left eventually. That happens with understanding theory or with technique as well. So yeah, always try to make sure that there are no gaps in your process, even if it's with something very seemingly simple. Just try to be able to fully understand what's going on. With
Right.
that so far, guys. Yep.
No. What I was gonna say is like, don't be afraid of going back to the basics. We do like I've been playing for so long, and I still sometimes I have to go back and polish my technique or whatever it is. Like look out some obscure concept that may flew under the radar. Don't feel bad. Like there is no ego here. Like if you want to Google how to do a seventh chord, then go ahead and do it. It's just it's foundational stuff that you need to know in order to move forward. And like related to that, and this is a huge problem on the current state of online information with this. I absolutely despise this kind of thing. Like everyone is posting like 1 minute shorts about everything, or like everything has to be a life hack, or like 3 fast licks to play a 2-5-1 progression, or like look at these 3 cool licks over the blues pedal. I absolutely despise that because it encourages you to not study and only learn the hack so you can hack your way through an improv. And it's just horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And what you end up is like, and this is like one of the multiple reasons people keep coming to the academy, is that they say, oh, well, I can play 2 or 3 licks and then that's all I can play. And that's a result of a little bit, in no small part, due to this kind of like new style of content online, and it's plagued everywhere. It's hard to find good material online, or like good structure material. But material, like if you Google, I don't know, stuff like what is the Dorian mode, like I mentioned earlier, you're gonna find like 200 videos about the Dorian mode, right? But out of those 200, how many of those are actually quality? Well, obviously the GuitarZoom is a good one, right? But what about the other ones? So you need to be careful with what you look out online, because most of those things that you find online are not structured and not high quality. There is no progression in that teaching. You're gonna find like, oh yes, 5 ideas to solo over a 2-5-1 progression, and there's gonna be like, I don't know, ultra scale. It's kind of stuff that's really advanced, and it's like it's not made for your state of playing, honestly. So you gotta be careful, and if at any point you see those videos and you don't understand what you're doing, then you need to be careful with that. Right?
Yeah, also there's this very interesting guy called Steve Stine. I don't know if you guys have seen him. He has
It
some
rings a
pretty
bell.
cool. Yeah, maybe kind of familiar.
Yeah,
He has some
there's
pretty
this thing
cool-
called the Academy, right?
Yeah, he does something like that. I'm not sure, but yeah, he has pretty like easy to understand explanations on basically concepts, on licks, on scales, and a lot of things. So Steve and the GuitarZoom channel are good sources. I don't say that not only because I'm here, but because I've actually seen the content and know that Steve breaks down the stuff on a pretty easy to understand way. But that's just one of the many like good sources, I would say. Maybe for the people that are just starting to take a look and want to take a look at some YouTube recommendations, I would just say Paul David's. Also, personally, I consider that a very good channel in order to understand concepts pretty easily. You can have too many of Steve's lessons, definitely. That's something that you need to chunk down as well. You can watch a lot of them and end up with just a bunch of information that you don't really know how to apply.
Yeah. As charming as Steve is, if you have like 300 courses and you can watch Steve talk about topics all day and it's not gonna stick around. You need to just look, like you need to set a goal. You need to have a direction, which is what we do at the academy. You know, just chiming in. You can apply here and get a custom path to achieve your guitar goals. But without a direction, you're not gonna do any sensible progress. Because again, you're gonna be working on random videos or a bunch of courses that are not directly related to where you're gonna go. That is the whole point we're here in this call right now. Like Juan?
Yeah, and actually, I have found that the stuff that we most usually try to tell people when they feel lost on not knowing what to do is try to chunk down, because usually when they get to that point, they are trying to work on this and that and that and that and that, and there's no connection with an actual goal on a very, let's say, short and medium term placement. So I would say just try to work on very, very few things. We actually just end up telling them, look, work on this key, on these chords, on just this one song, and you'll be good to go. And I find that very effective. Like I just asked them a couple of days later, how did that go? And yeah, that's exactly what I needed to do. So it's always, or almost always, an issue on chunking down, of just trying to be very selective on what information are you applying
Right.
and what are you
Especially,
studying.
especially Juan, if you're very busy and your schedule is tight, you cannot really, like if you have 20, 30 minutes a day to play guitar, you're not gonna spend it on video courses on random stuff. You don't really want to do that, otherwise you're gonna get stuck forever, right? You want to be very, very careful with what you do with those very precious 20 minutes a day that you have for enjoying your guitar. If that's the case, you need to be having fun and moving forward, right? So yep, that's my take on that. And for me personally, my brain is pretty dumb and my fingers are pretty dumb as well. So I have to grind a lot, a certain technique or thing for me to stick around. And for me, I work like months on one thing, which I mean I know for some people is not, or it may look frustrating or something like that. But for me, it's if I enjoy what I'm doing, trying to hone on one skill particularly, could be riots or sweep picking. I went on a sweep picking kind of like madness practice session a couple years ago, and I stuck with for that for a while. It obviously worked because I improved a lot. But you can take many approaches with this as long as you know what you're doing. For example, I am a metalhead, and sweep picking is all around those solos. So for me, it's very valuable to get good at that because it's one of the things that I like to do on my solos. But if you're playing classic rock, then it may not make any sense. So you need to spend time with the right things as well, not just that.
Yeah, and also just circling back a little bit to something you mentioned earlier, work on the fundamentals. I feel that's extremely
Mhm.
important for everything you want to practice. So, work on your timing, work on your chords, work on understanding what's a chord. Like this stuff will come down the line basically on any repertoire you'll be working on any exercise you'll do. So, work on those fundamental stuff and really spend your time there. Now, how to do that? For instance, if you struggle a little bit with timing, maybe try to play, if you're playing songs, just thinking of random examples. If you're playing songs, try to play your songs with the recording. Like hit play on YouTube and start playing on top of your recording. That's what worked for me in order to develop my timing initially. Or maybe if you're working on soloing, focus on a specific technique, such as 1 year of sweep picking or something like that. Like really spend your time in order to interiorize that technique. That stuff doesn't really go away that easy, or if at all. So if you really work on your fundamentals, you'll have that very solid foundation to build on upon. So that's one of the things I wanted to say. Another one is more like a personal experience. I studied jazz guitar at college, and we had like semesters which were actually 4 months of just like very, very intense study. And the only grade that we have at the end of the semester was an exam on which they examined what we studied on those 4 months. So actually the requirements were not a lot of stuff. We did really very little stuff, but the idea was to work on that a lot. So every semester we had to work on a swing tune, a binary tune, such as, for example, a bossa nova, a ballad, and a solo. We could change things up, but it was mainly those four requirements. So it seems like very little stuff to practice. But the thing is that we worked on very specific stuff on each one of these, and they got increasingly more complex. And actually, down the line, you actually ran out of time in order to practice this because there was a lot to practice in just this one song, and just this one song. Like on those very seemingly easy tasks, I really spent some 4 months, and I felt like I could go on and on just studying those 4 songs. So that the lesson I got from there is really spend your time and don't overestimate, I would say, like how much can you learn with just one single thing that you're practicing. Either it's a song, a technique, a concept, a theory concept. Really spend your time there and don't focus on something else apart from that. Or maybe do if you have already spent some time and are getting bored. But initially, spend some solid time there. It can range from maybe just focus on 1 week on this concept to 4 weeks or maybe 8 weeks. Like really try to dive into that concept, and you'll see the difference down the line. Especially, I don't know, if you're working on a very challenging song or solo, if you really, really just practice that, you'll see a lot of progress on that one right away. So that's just my take. Just focusing on a specific stuff for a while really makes a difference. Also, I think another key idea is to not forget having fun on the guitar, especially as you said, if your time practice schedule is very limited. Don't make it boring. That will make it just unmotivating to just grab the instrument and practice. So always try to make stuff fun as well. Some ideas for me, songs are always funny. Like basically, I recently don't usually practice that much, but when I do, I just play songs, and that's just extremely fun for me, and always has been, just being able to play music. If you're into soloing, maybe improvise. For me personally, creating and improvising is always very fun. You always encounter new ideas and get surprised on what can you identify over there or create. So yeah, just try to make stuff fun for you. That's, I think, the most important part. If something's not being fun, maybe it would be worth taking a look at having a different perspective or just changing the focus of that altogether. What do you have to say on that, Manu?
Well, song is the whole reason we play music. I think, music, period. Right. So I think everyone needs to play a good deal of songs. Even if you want to write your own stuff, you also need to learn songs and play them, specifically on the music styles that you want to be good at, right? And yeah, you gotta have fun. There's no fun in practicing spiders all day. It's only so much exercises that you can do before dropping there, right? So make good use of your time, and the fundamentals is something that should be in your core practice every day, because that's like the basic tools that you're gonna use every day. Especially, you mentioned timing. People are not putting enough attention to timing. I mean, it's everything. I mean, you can miss a note, and no one will bat an eye in a show. But if you're out of time, you're gonna be the worst musician in the history of music if you're playing out of sync with the rest of the people. So it's prioritize what you need out of all the things that you want to learn and all the information that is being blasted to your face in all the social media and videos and everything. Just make a priority list of things that you want to do. Above all, have fun. That's what I always say. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And from there, you just need to go down, right, or up the rabbit hole. Just get out of whatever rabbit hole you are, and try to find a good path for your learning. Because essentially, that's it. There's a lot of good information. I think there is some golden nuggets in there floating around online. Some channels, some people that are very good educators, obviously here and others, but the disconnection between all the information is the biggest problem. So unfortunately, there is not much you can do that apart from joining GuitarZoom Academy, right? So you can get some direction there. But if not, what you need to be really careful on what and how you watch it and how you consume all that information. Otherwise, you're gonna get overwhelmed, or you're gonna be working on more advanced stuff than you can really take, and you're gonna end up with more questions than answers than when you started.
Yeah, also, I think one very important idea is to have somebody keeping you accountable, or to be part of a community, or just like somebody who's checking on your progress, or at least that you can share your process with. For me, that was my teacher in college and my fellas. Over here, we do see that on the community at the GuitarZoom Academy. And I don't say that as a sponsor, but really the people over here are just very encouraging and very happy to share the stuff that they're learning, practicing. We always see people very happy to share a video of what they're working on the week. There's a guy over here that every day posts an improvisation over any blues backing tracks. Yep. Or maybe a song here and there that he's working on. And that motivates everyone, like people really, really get out something out of just seeing those posts, and that builds momentum. So yeah, I feel it's very important to not only have or be a part of a space where you're welcome to share your ideas and you're welcome to be you, like without any pressure, but it also keeps you accountable. If you're falling through the cracks, maybe people or a friend or an instructor or whoever is gonna be like, hey, how's it going? Like, are you working on that stuff? What can we do to get you on track? And just being a part of that community aspect really also encourages you to keep going and to know that you're not alone on this one, and people are always learning and also learning, and not everyone needs to have everything sorted out right away. You can really spend your time on practicing something or on understanding something or on making a lot of mistakes. That's part of the process as well. Also, on a very recent meeting we had over here on the team, I heard a phrase that stuck to me, and it was, if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying enough. So it's cool to allow yourself to make mistakes when practicing, when learning. That's the stuff that you will understand in order to actually aim for the right path, and it's to aim for the wrong one. And also just allowing yourself to be on a space that doesn't judge or pressure you because of that mistake, but also welcomes that because that's part of learning as well. I think it's crucial and just very human in general. Like being a part of a community and sharing interests is just very cool at the end of the day. So yeah, the community aspect of that, I think it's also very, very important. So that's why we have the GuitarZoom Academy, in case you want to consider joining up our community made up of our students, us, the instructors, the staff. You'll be welcome there. I'm gonna leave the link once again over there.
Yep. This is what we do at the open rooms all day, and the structure and accountability. Basically, that's we try to keep people engaged. We try to keep them stay away from rabbit holes unless they are very comfortable and rabbit holes that are important for them. But yeah, I love your point of view with mistakes, like perfectionism, and this is something that happens a lot in YouTube. You see this kind of like unrealistic expectations from social media. Like usually the stuff that you see posted, it's the process of like 100, 200 hours of work. You're gonna see a pristine take, every note is perfect, and that is like very far from truth. And so the cool thing about the academy is you're gonna see the process from the inside. So there's a lot of players that are students that are posting there, and they just post a lot of work in progress, and it's rough, and that's real guitar world. This is real guitar progress right there. It's not like I pick up my guitar and everything is like handy dandy, is perfect and squeaky clean. It doesn't work like that. We are humans and we make mistakes, or like Bob Ross says, like happy little accidents. I think you need to embrace those, right?
Yeah, they're just part of the process. I as well, like I can upload a video of me playing, but that's just the end take. But probably I did at least 5 takes where I screwed up before being able to post it. That's actually something that happens for me. I just like to post sometimes on my social media, or I share it over here with our team, but I just share the last take, or I share the edited take. But there's a lot of mistakes going on whenever I play and record. So that's always going to be part of the process, and it's just very good, as Bob Ross mentions, like just to embrace those mistakes as part of you as well. So that's just to say, have fun. Don't be hard on yourself if you think you're making mistakes on the process. Maybe you're not placing your fingers correctly for a chord, or maybe you're struggling a little bit with your timing. That's exactly what you need to stress in order to make that better. But don't try to assume that it's gonna be perfect right away, because 1, it's not gonna be, and 2, I just find a lot of fun in understanding those mistakes, because they're a big gateway for you to understand what do you need to work on, or what's that weakness, let's say, that you can strengthen. So they are a part of the process as well. Also, I think one very important aspect to address here is creating a practice routine, because you can know where you want to go, but if there's a disconnection with where you are and where you want to go, if there's no bridge to get there, you'll just fall to the abysm. So it's just going to be very useful to have a very solid practice routine with specific stuff on time frames as well that you can do. So we actually have a class on that. I'll try to take a look at where's the recording on YouTube. I'm sure I'll find it. But in the meantime, I would just say, like, this is my very general way of organizing a practice routine. And it is, I like to work on my exercises for half of the time I'm practicing, and the other half, I apply those exercises in context. So if I'm studying sweep picking, because I like it or I want to be able to sweep very fast, I'll do some sweep picking arpeggios or some sweep exercises for, I don't know, if I have an hour to practice, I'll do that for 30 minutes. And the other 30, I'll try to use them in a solo, like strictly just sweeping on my solos. That's just a very improvised and general example, but that's just to showcase the idea that I have on spend half on the gym stuff that you need to do on the guitar to just be very proficient at that specific skill, and the other half spend it actually making that relevant or making music with that. That's the way I just like to think about it. At the end of the day, we're creating music, so every tool we learn or study is just going to be useful for applying it in making music. So yeah, that's my half and half approach. We could go deeper. That's what we do here in the academy on very individual assessments. But yeah, that's my takeaway.
No, and I share that half and half. It's usually a great starting point. You can obviously tweak that depending. Like if you have a gig in a week and you have to learn 40 songs, well, there's not gonna be much time for technique, right? You gotta learn those 40 songs, live or die, right? So you can absolutely adjust it to your needs. But the practice routine will give you a lot of clarity on what you're looking for, what you need to be working on. And of course, those real world examples, that practical half that you're gonna do is gonna shine some light on what do we actually need to practice, because you may be sinking a lot of time in triads, and then you start playing. You do half an hour of triads and your practice routine, and that's all perfect. And then you jump into a song with triads, and then you find out that your timing sucks, and then you cannot connect those triads, not because you cannot play the triads, but because you're having trouble applying them in real time. Well, then you need to put your effort somewhere else. So always, like, sometimes the problem is like surrounding the thing that you're studying, so you gotta be careful with how you approach it. And so that's one of the things that we do at Academy as well. Oh, you posted the routine, nice.
Yep. That's for
Awesome.
both this Zoom chat and also for the people watching on YouTube. That's a link for our free school community. So we're hosting this kind of lessons twice a week over there. And there's also a community of people posting and having conversations there. And you also have access to the recordings of these lessons in case you saw something and want to go back to that. So I just left the link in both chats. You're always welcome there, guys.
Awesome, Juan. Now, like, if we are like on the final 15 minutes of the Zoom session, what do we, like, if you had to give one advice to Mr. John YouTube Clicker, what would you say?
Just one. That's a great question. I would say
I'm making you think a little bit.
a lot. I would say be honest on what's important for you on your process and focus there. I would just leave it there. So again, if it's songs, focus on your songs. If it's writing, focus on your writing. Whatever, like, be very honest. What's the most important stuff guitar-wise for me right now? Okay, there's your answer. It can be very intuitive, but just a simple answer. Focus on this. Okay, spend most of your time in that specific stuff. What would you tell Mr. John YouTube Clicker?
Have fun. Have fun. Whatever that fun is, just do it. Right? You don't have to study all the 7 modes of the major scale just because someone on YouTube told you to do so. Just play songs if that makes you happy, right?
Yeah,
That's simple.
also you're allowed to have fun with boring stuff as well. Like if you really have fun doing spider walks, well, go ahead. If they're fun, why not? Or if you do have fun on understanding the half diminished mode or all of the 7 modes of the melodic minor scale or whatever rabbit hole you want to take a look into, if that makes you happy, go explore that. Actually, my guitar teacher in college, when we were getting into some weird theory stuff, he said, create something with that. So if you have this very dissonant chord that's not usually used, don't overlook it. On the other hand, go and write a tune using that chord, and you'll get a very different sound, and you'll get to know that mode, and you'll be making music using that new concept. So yeah, also don't feel pressured to do something very specific, but actually listen to yourself and what's fun for you, and take that approach as well. There's a comment from Philip. Okay, yeah, thank you, Philip, for sharing that. It's great to know that it's being useful. So let me watch YouTube. Yeah, Corio over there said some time ago, great approach. So thank you for that.
Hey guys, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat, please. Zoom chat or YouTube chat. We're reading. I was thinking like another source of like a pile of information that's usually very disconnected is well, it's tangential to guitar playing, but it's very important as well. It's like gear and setup related. There's like billions of videos on how to set up an amp, how to set up your tone, how to do recording as well, and those are like actually could be big rabbit holes and kind of like all over the place. So same thing applies. Start with the basic. Like if you're trying to learn how to set up a good tone for, I don't know, soloing, then you need to know a little bit of the basics of tone crafting, right? Well, what is the signal chain? What happens when you plug in your guitar to the amp? Like that, the basic stuff. Otherwise, you're just gonna be turning knobs blindly. You're gonna be flying blind with your tone, and that's, I mean, it's the same as playing, but with gear.
Which
and again,
can also...
same as when you're learning guitar, you want to have a direction. That direction is going to be what sound you're looking for. So that's it. The same applies.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that kind of tweaking knobs mindlessly can also be a way of having fun and understanding this stuff. But I would say direction is the key word. So try to know why are you doing that. So for instance, actually the way I always try to recommend exploring tone is literally play around with your knobs, play around with all of the options you have in order to spot a difference on your sound. But that's the thing. Try to understand what's the name of this knob. It can be tone. So what happens if you turn the tone down? It sounds like this. Versus if it's up, it will sound like that. Okay, so that's what tone does. It sounds A or B. Do that with any knob, with any selector. But that's it. Like we can tweak stuff around mindlessly, but there's still a sense of direction, like trying to identify what this stuff does. The same thing will apply for maybe more musical stuff, guitar related. You can play around with a scale, and that will be a way of playing around with it and having fun with that. But the main direction of that can be maybe work on your solo or work on your knowledge of theory, like aiming for a specific direction. But yeah, I always try to incorporate the fun aspect of that as well. It's just gonna be key. Otherwise, you won't pick up the guitar. It's gonna become boring and you'll just get unmotivated by it. But yeah, that's awesome, guys. So far, do you have any questions or comments that you would like to share? If so, please leave them on the chat. Or if you're on Zoom, please just open your mic. We'll be happy to hear you. In the meantime, I'll just mention a couple of things. So I actually prepared a couple of ideas with Google. So I asked Google to help me preparing the class, and it said these very cool tips. So for dealing with frustration, it says, first, validate your emotions. That's going to be important. Also, take breaks. get away from the instrument when frustration is high, take a walk, listen to music, or do something that you enjoy for clearing your mind. Also, change your approach. If an exercise is being frustrating, just change to another one that's fun. Also, celebrate small progress down the line. That's gonna be key. And for dealing with information overload, this told me follow a study plan. So that's our duty to just focus a specific path for you. Also learn the essentials or the fundamentals, what we said before. Ignore the irrelevant. Again, if your focus is songs, maybe modes are not going to be so relevant right now. And create a practice routine. That's extremely important for not having information overload.
And identifying which one of those pieces of information is relevant or not is typically a problematic point. Which one of these 30 videos is the one that I will have to watch? And well, that's sometimes a problem that you have to address. But keep in mind, like if you're in doubt, keep it simple, right? Don't dive into super complex topics unless you really know what you're doing, and keep it relevant to your style. Like if you want to play blues, you can do a lot with the pentatonic. Hell, some BB King freaking build a 60-year-long career with just the pentatonic. You can do it as well. So you don't need to go overly complex. You just need to have a good grasp of the fundamentals, right, and a solid routine so you can work on them well.
Yeah, and also there's no need to reinvent the wheel every time. Like if you work on your fundamentals, you'll find your own sound and your own path right there. As you just said, BB King made his whole career with that pentatonic, but he's not the only one. Like John Frusciante also did, and he sounds entirely different, right? But they're using the same concept. The thing is that they're putting their identities into that specific concept. That's what makes it extremely different. So also always be curious and try to just take your own approach to the stuff, because that's also how you can, one, have fun, and two, find your own sound, which is very cool to identify as well. Like to be able to express yourself to the instrument is just very fulfilling. So don't forget that personal part of it. Also, one of the last ideas I have is I just wanted to mention from a very personal experience. When I started studying this at college, we had to like prepare an audition and all of that. So you kind of had to be already on a very solid level on playing. So I really spent some time and actually failed a couple of times that audition until I actually got in. And on the very first lesson, my guitar teacher just said, "Look, nice to meet you. I'm just gonna assume you don't know anything. That's not to be disrespectful, but just to work on the fundamentals right now." So most of what I remember from the first class was just working on A minor pentatonic and just this scale over and over on the fretboard with a metronome. But the goal of this was to focus on sound. So he actually just took an entire hour to just work on my tone. And although that's something that I had previously done, it was very humbling and very mind-opening to see, like, okay, we really need to spend our time, really need to slow down and focus on very small stuff. Like after studying a lot of chords, harmony, improvisation, sound, a lot of stuff, the first lesson was kind of slow all of this down and focus on just playing a scale very slowly and just be here, present. So I think that's also gonna be very important to just work on one single thing. As much attention as you pay to that very small concept, the faster you'll progress on that, and that will help you building up different skills down the line. But again, dial down to the smallest bit of information.
Yep, agree with you, Juan. And finally, get some clarity. Get some clarity in your process by joining the GuitarZoom Academy. Of course, this is what we do every day, guys. This is we help players achieve their goals. All right, we help with all this routine, keeping them out of rabbit holes, or at least in the right rabbit hole. If you're gonna jump into one of those, we keep them accountable. We watch their progress every week. This is what we do every day. We breathe guitar, live guitar. Every day of the week. So if you're interested in that. If you enjoyed today's session, if you enjoyed talking about guitar goals, information overload, routines, and all that, join the academy. We do this every day, and we would love you to be there. So I'm gonna drop the link in there one more time. You can apply there, and there's 5 other cool guys that just like Juan and myself in there, waiting for you to join and have some a good time in open rooms in there.
Yep, and we also just like to talk. Like we have some sessions every day where we just are there. Whether if you have like a very specific question or just want to hang out, we'll always be happy to just have a conversation with you. And yeah, we always as well try to just focus your processes on being relevant for you and you to be on track with your goals. So if that's something that you think is something you need right now, consider joining. We'll be happy to talk to you guys. With that in mind, thank you Casco, thank you Colin, Philip, Chris who just joined, and everyone on the YouTube stream as well for listening to us. Please let us know if there are any questions.
Nothing, guys. Thanks for all the good questions and comments.
Awesome, guys. Good to see that it's all good for now. And see you around on our next class. The next one is gonna be, let me see. It's gonna be
Thursday or Friday?
Thursday, and it's gonna be a Q&A with 2 different instructors. I think it's gonna be Luca and Victor, if I'm not wrong. So if you guys want to just ask anything to our instructors, whether it's about your process, whether it's a doubt that you have, or just want to ask like very relaxed stuff, you can hop in and they'll be happy to answer anything. With that in mind, guys, thank you very much and see you around on the next classes, okay?